Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greeting across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear scholars, to the study. Hello there, Julian20. Good evening to you as well, and I'm glad you enjoy a good fairy tale. Hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome. And hello there, Firefly. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you're all doing very well this evening or morning or wherever you happen to be. I myself have been alright, I suppose, just getting some things put together for some future work. Hello there, cool skeleton. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Ah, Julian20, oh, just fabulous. Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad to hear that positivity from my dear scholars. And if you're having a rough time, well, I hope this time with all of us may make it a little bit better. Excuse me. I needed to get a little bit of a drink. So this, so I, like I said, I hope everyone's doing well. I'm sorry for the little late start. There was some frantic putting together a few things before we begin tonight's reading stream. Cool skeleton video editing can take it out of you. Oh my goodness. What are you editing? I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking. I am very curious to hear. And if you feel uncomfortable about saying so, well, that's fine. I understand. Oh my goodness. Oh, cool skeleton, no worries. Oh, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. So my dear scholars, it's good to be back. By the way, after a week's off for recovering from that book crock and bite. Cool skeleton. I have a few Splatoon videos in progress. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad you're doing videos like that. I'm sure they'll be excellent when they're finished. I'm sure any project you work on will be excellent. Let's see. Yes, it's been fairly busy in the study, putting things together, together. Oh, I'm a little bit mealy mouthed tonight. Putting things together, getting things ready for some future streams. Cool skeleton. There seems to be some stream lag. Oh, oh really? Um, um, dear scholars, when it comes to the stream lag, do you mean like there's a lag between the way I'm talking and what's coming out, or do you mean like like answering? Oh, hello there, Densuo. Thank you for the lurking. Densuo, no lag on my end. Okay, okay. If there's a delay between me actually seeing what you're saying and what is on my end, I'm not sure what that might be. It might be the time differential between the two dimensions, but on my end, I don't see much in terms of difference. Hmm. So, my dear scholars, tonight, tonight, we're going back to an old favorite. I haven't done this in a while for a reading stream, so I am really excited. Cool skeleton, when you're answering, the video seems fine. Oh, so there's a lag between me answering you and seeing the questions. I don't think that's something I can correct, as far as I can tell. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I think the chat lagging. I'll have to look into that. Horace, write that down. Make sure I look into the chat lag. I think that's something that I can't really correct. Maybe it's the program I'm using. And I don't know. I can't tell you why that is. I'll look into it as soon as this stream's done and try and figure out what's going on that end. In the meantime, I apologize, my dear scholars, if there is that sort of lag between the two. Oh, I see, I see. So it's the Firefly, not this box over here, but the one behind you on screen does. Oh, okay. So there is, yeah. I think there is always going to be a certain little weird lag in the Twitch verse. Where was I? Oh yes. Tonight's stream. Tonight's stream. I have not done this in a while. I'm kind of looking forward to it. We are going to be reading fairy tales. I have not done a folktale or fairy tale stream in a long time. So I am really excited to do this tonight. And we are going to be reading from the complete Grimm's fairy tales. Oh, this is going to be excellent. Um, I'm sure many of you know who the Grimm's brothers are. Who here, my dear scholars, know or have heard of the Grimm's brothers? Get another drink. I'm kind of not surprised. Let me see. What was the name? Trying to remember their names. um, oh my goodness, the book doesn't actually mention their name. Oh, there it is on the back. Um, for those who don't know, oh, hello there, Crusader Corrupted. Welcome. Jacob Grimm and Wilhelm Grimm, were brothers, and Cool Skeleton, me, I personally knew them once. Oh my goodness. They asked me for an interview before. Oh, I'm not surprised. You would be an interesting subject for them. The Grimm's brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm, were best known for going around the Germanic areas and collecting various folk tales and folklore. Um, the stories they originally collected were very dark, as many of you know. And here's a fun fact. People often talk about how the fairy tales later on were somewhat neutered for children that took a lot of the darkness. The Grimm's brothers actually did some of that themselves, and they did that because they started to learn that children were reading the books, not just academics and adults. So they felt the need to somewhat make it child friendly. Firefly cough, Disney cough. Yes, yes. They somewhat neutered some of the stories. Tonight's selection, I've selected a bunch of them. I might add more if we have time. There are some familiar ones in this selection that I've made, but I've also gone out of my way to choose ones that, some of you might not know or have heard of. Um, I am also going to be skipping stories which have, let's put it simply, have aged horribly. Um, that means there are some in here which I will not give the titles because they are really horrible in terms of content. But I have selected, let's see, five of them. We probably will add some more if I have time. But I thought these ones would be a good start for the evening. So, my dear scholars, are you ready to venture forth into the dark woods, brave the castles deep, and see what is lurking behind every little tree? Ah, yes, alright. Sit back, my dear scholars. Have a hot or cold beverage. Get yourself ready, and let us begin. Hello there, Kintron. Welcome. You're just in time for us to start reading some Grimm's fairy tales. Paramount and for dark comedy. I suppose. Excuse me. It's dry air. You have to keep the library a little bit dry. The straw, the coal, and the bean. In a village dwelt a poor old woman who had gathered together a dish of beans and wanted to cook them. So she made a fire on her hearth, and that it might burn the quicker, she lighted it with a handful of straw. When she was emptying the beans into the pan, one dropped without her observing it, and lay on the ground beside a straw. And soon afterwards, a burning coal from the fire leapt down to the two. Then the straw began, and said, "Dear friends, from whence do you come here?" The coal replied, "I fortunately sprang out of the fire, and if I had not escaped by sheer force, my death would have been certain. I should have been burnt to ashes." The bean said, "I too have escaped with a whole skin, but if the old woman had got me into the pan, I should have been made into broth without any mercy like my comrades." And would a better fate have fallen? Oh, there we go. Oh, hold on a second. Sorry. I have to remember the voices. Maybe I'll skip some voices this time because it's very hard to focus on the voices. "And would a better fate have fallen to my lot?" said the straw. "The old woman has destroyed all my brethren in fire and smoke. She seized 60 of them at once, and took their lives. I luckily slipped through her fingers." "But what are we to do now?" said the coal. "I think," answered the bean, "that as we have so fortunately escaped death, we should keep together like good companions." I have to move my bookmark. Ah. "And lest a new mischance should overtake us here, we should go away together, and repair to a foreign country." The proposition pleased the two others, and they set out on their way together. Firefly, there is a recipe for this story in my Grimm cookbook when you're done. Ooh, I'd love to hear what it is. Soon, however, they came to a little brook, and as there was no bridge or footplank, they did not know how they were to get over it. The straw hit on a good idea, and said, "I will lay myself straight across, and then you can walk over on me as on a bridge." The straw therefore stretched itself from one bank to the other, and the coal, who was of an impetuous disposition, tripped quite boldly on to the newly built bridge. But when she had reached the middle, and heard the water rushing beneath her, she was after all afraid, and stood still, and ventured no farther. Oh, I didn't know the coal was female. The straw, however, began to burn, broke in two pieces, and fell into the stream. The coal slipped after her, hissed when she got into the water, and breathed her last. The bean, who had prudently stayed behind on the shore, could not but laugh at the event, was unable to stop, and laughed so heartily that she burst. It would have been all over with her likewise, if, by good fortune, a tailor who was travelling in search of work had not sat down to rest by the brook. As he had a compassionate heart, he pulled out his needle and thread, and sewed her together. The bean thanked him most prettily, but as the tailor used black thread, all beans since then have a black seam. A nice, short, interesting tale. This story has many variations across the world, many of them. I've read a variation which is a Hungarian story, but which removes the bean in favor of a sausage or bladder, and there is a Japanese variation on this story, which is More or less the exact same story, except the bean and the bean, the straw, and the coal decide that they are going to go and visit the shrine at Ise. Yulin 20. Oh, I know that one. Yes, I'm. Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting variation. And Firefly, you said there's a recipe in your cookbook based off this story? I would love to hear what it is. Oh my goodness, I forgot to part our curtains. There we are. Mm, I forgot about that. I'm so the the sea fairies made it so I forgot about all that. Mm. Firefly, yes, with some paragraphs about the story and a recipe for garlicky bean and mixed vegetable roast. That sounds absolutely delicious. Oh my goodness, that really sounds wonderful. I'm sure many. Kintron, what's the book's name? That is a good question. What's the name of the book, Firefly? So I'm sure some here would love to know what it is so that they may check it out. Firefly, which seems to be an oven casserole of bell pepper, lots of veg, beans, tomatoes, etc. I will give a moment. Firefly, the Brothers Grimm cookbook, recipes inspired by fairy tales by Robert Tousley Anderson. Ooh, interesting. Oh, I'll have to check that one out. I have to look into that one. Oh, Kintron. So, the next story I'm about to read is a little bit more famous. Some of you might have heard this one. It's a personal favorite of mine. I think it's a wonderful little story. And it is called, excuse me, it is called, give me 1 second. I want to make sure I don't drop my water, which is unfortunately perilously tipping over. Mm, don't want any accidents here. Firefly, a friend kindly sent it around Christmas Yule. Oh, wonderful. Well, your friend seems very considerate for you. This story is called Mother Hall, and Hall is spelled Holle. All right. There was once a widow with who had 2 daughters, one of whom was pretty and industrious, whilst the other was ugly and idle. But she was much fonder of the ugly and idle one, because she was her own daughter, and the other, who was a stepdaughter, was obliged to do all the work, and be the Cinderella of the house. Now, that's an interesting thing. They use Cinderella as a term rather than a name in this one. Every day the poor girl had to sit by a well in the highway and spin till her fingers bled. Now it happened that one day the shuttle was marked with her blood, so she dipped it in the well to wash the mark off. But it dropped out of her hand and fell to the bottom. She began to weep and ran to her stepmother and told her of the mishap. But she scolded her sharply, and was so merciless as to say, "Since you have let the shuttle fall in, you must fetch it out again." So the girl went back to the well, and did not know what to do, and in the sorrow of her heart she jumped into the well to get the shuttle. She lost her senses, and when she awoke and came to herself again, she was in a lovely meadow, where the sun was shining and many thousands of flowers were growing. Across this meadow she went, and at last came to a baker's oven full of bread. And the bread cried out, "Oh, take me out! Take me out, or I shall burn! I have been baked to a long time." So she went up to it, and took out all the loaves one after another with the bread shovel. After that she went on till she came to a tree covered with apples, which called out to her, "Oh, shake me, shake me! We apples are all ripe." So she shook the tree till the apples fell like rain, and went on shaking till they were all down. And when she had gathered them into a heap, she went on her way. At last she came to a little house, out of which an old woman peeped. But she had such large teeth that this girl was frightened and was about to run away. But the old woman called out to her,
What are you afraid of, dear child? Stay with me, if you will do all the work in the house properly. You shall be the better for it. Only you must take care to make my bed well, and to shake it thoroughly till the feathers fly. For then there is snow on the earth. I am Mother Hall.
As the old woman spoke so kindly to her, the girl took courage and agreed to enter her service. She attended to everything to the satisfaction of her mistress, and always shook her bed so vigorously that the feathers flew about like snowflakes. So she had a pleasant life with her, and never an angry word, and to eat she had boiled or roast meat every day. She stayed some time with Mother Hall before she became sad. At first she did not know what was the matter with her, but found at length that it was homesickness. Although she was many thousand times better off than at home, still she had a longing to be there. At last she said to the old woman, "I have a longing for home, and however well off I am down here, I cannot stay any longer. I must go up again to my own people." Mother Hall said,
I am pleased that you long for your home again, and as you have served me so truly, I myself will take you up again.
Thereupon she took her by the hand and led her to a large door. The door was opened, and just as the maiden was standing beneath the doorway, a heavy shower of golden rain fell, and all the gold clung to her, so that she was completely covered over with it.
You shall have that, because you have been so industrious,
said Mother Hall, and at the same time she gave her back the shuttle which she had let fall into the well. Thereupon the door closed, and the maiden found herself up above upon the earth, not far from her mother's house. And as she went into the yard, the cock was singing on the well, and cried,
"Cock-a-doodle-doo! Your golden girl's come back to you."
So she went in to her mother, and as she arrived thus covered with gold, she was well received both by her and her sister. The girl told all that had happened to her, and as soon as the mother heard how she had come by so much wealth, she was very anxious to obtain the same good luck for the ugly and lazy daughter. She had to seat herself by the well and spin, and in order that the shuttle might be stained with blood, she struck her hand into a thorn bush and pricked her finger. Then she threw her shuttle into the well and jumped in after it. She came like the other to the beautiful meadow, and walked along the very same path. When she got to the oven, the bread again cried, "Oh, take me out, or I shall burn! I have been baked a long time." But the lazy thing answered, "As if I had any wish to make myself dirty." And on she went. Soon she came to the apple tree, which cried, "Oh, shake me, we apples are all ripe." But she answered, "I like that. One of you might fall on my head," and so went on. When she came to Mother Hall's house, she was not afraid, for she had already heard of her big teeth, and excuse me, and she hired herself to her immediately. The first day, she forced herself to work diligently, and obeyed Mother Hall when she told her to do anything, for she was thinking of all the gold that she would give her. But on the second day, she began to be lazy, and on the third day still more so, and then she would not get up in the morning at all. Neither did she make Mother Hall's bed as she ought, and did not shake it so as to make the feathers fly up. Mother Hall was soon tired of this, and gave her notice to leave. The lazy girl was willing enough to go, and thought that now the golden rain would come. Mother Hall led her also to the great door, but while she was standing beneath it, instead of the gold, a big kettleful of pitch was emptied over her.
"That is the reward for your service,"
said Mother Hall, and shut the door. So the lazy girl went home, but she was quite covered with pitch, and the cock on the well, as soon as he saw her, cried out,
"Cock-a-doodle-doo! Your dirty girl's come back to you."
but the pitch clung fast to her, and could not be got off as long as she lived. That would teach you. Oh my goodness. It's very common in fairy tales. You see this motif uh happen a lot of times. The idea of you do something good for a magical being, you get rewarded. You do something bad for said magical being, you get punished. And it also often is a warning to treat strangers well back in the day, and to show some form of kindness to anyone who might come by, because you never know who they might be. I'm not sure if that lesson applies nowadays, but it was an interesting lesson then. Cool skeleton karma. Oh, yes, yes, definitely karma. It basically is a lesson in karma. Okay, then. How many of you, dear scholars, have heard the story of Mother Hall before? I personally think it's excellent. It's one of my favorite stories in them. Firefly, sometimes I think we should still have some of that expected hospitality. But yes, karma. Oh, you have Firefly. Nice. Yeah, it's a lovely story. Christian, it's one I've told. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Um, yeah, it's a fun story. And it's got such an, I don't know why I am very, very fond of it. I have no idea why it's one of my favorites. It just has this wonderful little lesson in it. And I like that they mention that Mother Hall, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, that Mother Hall has a frightening appearance, because it contrasts the idea that she's this frightening person with the kindness that she shows to those who are kind to her. The Grimm's, I believe it's the Grimm's brothers, actually theorized that Mother Hall was a leftover of a Proto-Germanic goddess that was worshipped in ancient times. It's an interesting idea. So our next story that we'll be doing is called The Sinning Bone, and it's one of the darker tales from Grimm's fairy tales. The Grimm fairy tale, as it were. So here we go. The Singing Bone. Kintron, I think there was a similar version of Baba Yaga. Yes, this whole idea with the girl meeting objects along the way, which help her along the way, is in the Baba Yaga legend as well. That's the neat thing with fairy tales and folk tales. They tend to spread out and have variations. Cool skeleton singing bone. I don't sing that much. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Wonder why they got that idea. The singing bone. In a certain country, there was once great lamentation over a wild boar that laid waste the farmers' fields, killing the cattle and ripped up people's bodies with his tusks. The king promised a large reward to anyone who would free the land from this plague. But the beast was so big and strong that no one dared to go near the forest in which he lived. At last, the king gave notice that whomsoever should capture or kill the wild boar should have his only daughter to wife. Now there lived in the country two brothers, sons of a poor man, who declared themselves willing to undertake the hazardous enterprise. The elder, who was crafty and shrewd out of pride. The younger, who was innocent and simple from a kind heart. The king said, "In order that you may be the more sure of finding the beast, you must go into the forest from opposite sides." So the elder went in on the west side, and the younger on the east. When the younger had gone a short way, a little man stepped up to him. He held in his hand a black spear, and said,
I give you this spear, because your heart is pure and good. With this you can boldly attack the wild boar, and it will do you no harm.
He thanked the little man, shouldered the spear, and went on fearlessly. Before long he saw the beast, which rushed at him, but he held the spear towards it, and in its blind fury it ran so swiftly against it that its heart was cloven in twain. Then he took the monster on his back and went homewards with it to the king. As he came out at the other side of the wood, there stood at the entrance a house where people were making merry with wine and dancing. His elder brother had gone in here, and thinking that after all the boar would not run away from him, was going to drink until he felt brave. But when he saw his young brother coming out of the wood laden with his booty, his envious evil heart gave him no peace. He called out to him, "Come in, dear brother, rest and refresh yourself with a cup of wine." The youth, who suspected no evil, went in and told him about the good little man who had given him the spear wherewith he had slain the boar. The elder brother kept him there until the evening, and then they went away together. And when in the darkness they came to a bridge over a brook, the elder brother let the other go first. And when he was halfway across, he gave him such a blow from behind that he fell down dead. He buried him beneath the bridge, and took the boar, and carried it to the king, pretending he had killed it. Whereupon he obtained the king's daughter in marriage. And when his younger brother did not come back, he said, "The boar must have ripped up his body." And everyone believed it. But as nothing remains hidden from God, so this black deed also was to come to light. Give me 1 second, I'm going to get a little bit sip of water. Need to hydrate my voice for this. Cool skeleton. Is this similar to Cain and Abel? Of a sort, yeah. Years afterwards, a shepherd was driving his herd across the bridge and saw lying in the sand beneath a snow-white little bone. He thought that it would make a good mouthpiece, so he clambered down, picked it up, and cut out of it a mouthpiece for his horn. But when he blew through it for the first time, to his great astonishment, the bone began of its own accord to sing. Ah, friend, thou blowest upon my bone. Long have I lain beside the water. My brother slew me for the boar, and took for his wife the king's younger daughter. Pardon my voice. Ah. What a wonderful horn, said the shepherd. It sings by itself. I must take it to my lord the king. Kintron clap. Cool skeleton applause. Ah, thank you, thank you. And when he came with it to the king, the horn again began to sing its little song. The king understood it all, and caused the ground below the bridge to be dug up, and then the whole skeleton of the murdered man came to light. The wicked brother could not deny the deed, and was sewn up in a sack and drowned. But the bones of the murdered man were laid to rest in a beautiful tomb in the churchyard. Like I said, a fairly dark story there. Yeah, fairly dark story there. A little fun fact with that story. Again, there are variations. I've seen a variation which is again a Hungarian variation of the story, where the murdered individual is actually a young princess of all people. And this story that I just read also was one of the stories, oddly enough, which was adapted for a 1950s fantasy film called The Wonderful World of the Grimm's Brothers. They did make some changes to the story for the segment. Rather than two brothers, it was a knight with his servant, a nobleman with his servant, and instead of a boar, it was a dragon. Um, the segment also ended in a much different way, in that the servant who was murdered was resurrected magically after the deed was revealed. Very odd choice for a children's show, film, I should say. Very odd choice, you would think. It's not what I would immediately think of doing for a story. Cool skeleton murder, yay! That seems to be half these stories. Alright then. So the next story we're going to be doing is a little bit longer. And this one's another one that has a lot of variations across the world. And this one is called The Four Skillful Brothers. This is another favorite of mine. I rather like it. The Four Skillful Brothers. There was once a poor man who had 4 sons, and when they were grown up, he said to them, "My dear children, you must now go out into the world, for I have nothing to give you. So set out, go abroad and learn a trade, and see how you can make your way." So the 4 brothers took their sticks, bade their father farewell, and went through the town gate together. When they had traveled about for some time, they came to a crossroads which branched off in four different directions. Then said the eldest, "Here we must separate, but on this day 4 years hence we will meet again. We will meet each other again in this spot, and in the meantime we will seek out our fortunes." Then each of them went his way, and the eldest met a man who asked him where he was going and what he was intending to do. "I want to learn a trade," he replied. Then the other said, "Come with me and be a thief." "No," he answered, "that is no longer regarded as a reputable trade, and the end of it is that one has to swing on the gallows." "Oh," said the man, "you need not be afraid of the gallows. I will only teach you to get such things as no other man would ever lay hold of, and no one will ever detect you." So he allowed himself to be talked into it, and while with the man became an accomplished thief, and so dexterous that nothing was safe from him if he once desired to have it. I never thought of being a thief as being an actual job. Interesting. The second brother met a man who put the same question to him, what he wanted to learn in the world. "I don't know yet," he replied. "Then come with me and be an astronomer. There is nothing better than that, for nothing is hid from you." He liked the idea, and became such a skillful astronomer that when he had learnt everything and was about to travel onwards, his master gave him a telescope and said to him,
With that you can see whatsoever takes place either on earth or in heaven, and nothing can remain concealed from you."
A huntsman took the third brother into training, and gave him such excellent instruction in everything which related to huntsmanship that he became an experienced hunter. When he went away, his master gave him a gun and said, "It will never fail you. Whatsoever you aim at, you are certain to hit." The youngest brother also met a man who spoke to him and inquired what his intentions were. "Would you not like to be a tailor?" said he. "Not that I know of," said the youth. Where am I? "Sitting doubled up from morning till night, driving the needle and the goose backwards and forwards, is not to my taste." "Oh, but you are speaking in elegance," answered the man. "With me you would learn a very different kind of tailoring, which is respectable and proper, and for the most part very honorable." For the most part, he says. So he let himself be persuaded, and went with the man, and learnt his art from the very beginning. When they parted, the man gave the youth a needle, and said, "With this you can sew together whatever is given you, whether it is as soft as an egg or as hard as steel, and it will all become one piece of stuff, so that no seam will be visible." When the appointed 4 years were over, the four brothers arrived at the same time at the crossroads, embraced and kissed each other, and returned home to their father.
"So now," said he, quite delighted, "the wind has blown you back again to me."
They told him of all that had happened to them, and that each had learnt his own trade. Now, now they were sitting just in front of the house under a large tree, and the father said,
"I will put you all to the test and see what you can do."
Then he looked up and said to his second son,
"Between two branches up at the top of this tree there is
okay, just trying to pronounce this,
a chaffinch.
a chafe finch.
Chaffinch's nest. Tell me how many eggs there are in it."
The astronomer took his glass, looked up, and said, "There are 5." Then the father said to the eldest,
"Fetch the eggs down without disturbing the bird which is sitting hatching them."
The skilful thief climbed up, and took the 5 eggs from beneath the bird, which never observed what he was doing, and remained quietly sitting where she was, and brought them down to his father. The father took them and put one of them on each corner of the table, and the fifth in the middle, and said to the huntsman,
With one shot you shall shoot me the 5 eggs in two through the middle.
"Oh, jeez, that's mean." The huntsman aimed and shot the eggs, all five, as the father had desired, and that at one shot. He certainly must have had some of the powder for shooting round corners.
Now it's your turn,
Said the father to the fourth son.
You shall sew the eggs together again, and the young birds that are inside them as well, and you must do it so that they are not hurt by the shot.
The tailor brought his needle, and sewed them as his father wished. When he had done this, the thief had to climb up the tree again, and carry them to the nest, and put them back again under the bird, without her being aware of it. Kintron, I need some powder that lets me shoot around corners. Well, that powder must be magic if it's able to do that. Excuse me. Or what was that? The bird sat her full time, and after a few days the young ones crept out, and they had a red line round their necks, where they had been sewn together by the tailor.
Well,
Said the old man to his sons,
you really ought to be praised to the skies. You have used your time well and learnt something good. I can't say which of you deserves the most praise. That will be proven if you have but an early opportunity of using your talents.
not long after this, there was a great uproar in the country, for the king's daughter was carried off by a dragon. The king was full of trouble about it, both by day and night, and caused it to be proclaimed that whosoever brought her back should have her to wife. The four brothers said to each other, "This would be a fine opportunity for us to show what we can do," and resolved to go forth together and liberate the king's daughter. "I will soon know where she is," said the astronomer, and looked through his telescope and said, "I see her already. She is far away from here on a rock in the sea, and the dragon is beside her watching her." Then he went to the king and asked for a ship for himself and his brothers, and sailed with them over the sea until they came to the rock. There the king's daughter was sitting, and the dragon was lying asleep on her lap. The huntsman said, "I dare not fire. I should kill the beautiful maiden at the same time." "Then I will try my art," said the thief, and he crept thither and stole her away from under the dragon, so quietly and dexterously that the monster never noticed it, but went on snoring. Full of joy, they hurried off with her on board ship, and steered out into the open sea. But the dragon, who when he awoke had found no princess there, followed them, and came snorting angrily through the air. Just as he was circling above the ship and about to descend on it, the huntsman shouldered his gun and shot him to the heart. The monster fell down dead, but was so large and powerful that his fall shattered the whole ship. Fortunately, however, they laid hold of a couple of planks and swam about the wide sea. Then again they were in great peril, but the tailor, who was not idle, took his wondrous needle, and with a few stitches sewed the planks together, and they seated themselves upon them, and collected together all the fragments of the vessels. Then he sewed them these so skilfully together that in a very short time the ship was once more seaworthy, and they could go home again in safety. When the king once more saw his daughter, there was great rejoicings. He said to the four brothers, "One of you shall have her to wife, but which of you is it to be you? Yeah. Weird, weird little grammar right here. But which of you is it to be? You must settle amongst yourselves. Oh, no, that's how it's said. But which of you is it to be? You must settle amongst yourselves. Still's an odd sentence. I mean, it sounds a very odd sentence when read. Then a heated argument arose among them, for each of them preferred his own claim. The astronomer said, "If I had not seen the princess, all your arts would have been useless, so she is mine." The thief said, "What would have been the use of your seeing, if I had not got her away from the dragon, so she is mine." The huntsman said, "You and the princess, and all of you, would have been torn to pieces by the dragon if my ball had not hit him, so she is mine." The tailor said, "And if by my art had not sewn the ship together again, you would all of you have been miserably drowned, so she is mine." Then the king pronounced his verdict. "Each of you has an equal right, and as all of you cannot have the maiden, none of you shall have her. But I will give to each of you, as a reward, half a kingdom." The brothers were pleased with this decision, and said, "It is better thus than that we should have at variance with each other." Then each of them received half a kingdom, and they lived with their father in the greatest happiness as long as it pleased God. Like I said, that's a bit of a longer story. For two kingdoms, yes. Where's this king gain a kingdom? I mean, is he dividing his own kingdom? Is there like an adjacent kingdom that he has that he could divide? Yulian 20, I remember that one. And the poor princess, she got rescued and ended up with nothing. Sorry, princess, promise you yeah. Sorry, princess, promise you a husband. You got nothing. It's a very odd story. I mean, I get the lesson in it. Kinshon, at least she wasn't cut in quarters. That is true, that is true. Dr. Zadian, they probably left out how the king savagely decimated two kingdoms to give the brothers their prize. I would have no doubt that that's what happened. Look, I've got four guys here. I need you to give up your kingdom so we can reward them. It's just such an odd thing. Ooh, the next story is another slightly longer one. And a slightly darker one as well. I need to get a lot of water for this. Don't know why my throat is so parched this evening. Oh, my goodness. So this one's another darker story. And this one is called The Grave Mound. A rich farmer was one day standing in his yard inspecting his fields and gardens. The corn was growing up vigorously, and the fruit trees were heavily laden with fruit. The grain of the year before still lay in such immense heaps in the loft that the rafters could hardly bear it. Then he went into the stable, where were well-fed oxen, fat cows, and horses bright as looking-glass. At length he went back into his sitting room, and cast a glance at the iron chest in which his money lay. Whilst he was thus standing surveying his riches, all at once there was a loud knock close by him. The knock was not at the door of the room, but at the door of his heart. It opened, And he heard a voice which said to him, "Have you done good to your family with it? Have you considered the necessities of the poor? Have you shared your bread with the hungry? Have you been contented with what you have, or did you always desire to have more?" The heart was not slow in answering, "I have been hard and pitiless, and have never shown any kindness to my own family. If a beggar came, I turned away my eyes from him. I have not troubled myself about God, but have thought only of increasing my wealth. If everything which the sky covers had been mine own, I should still not have had enough." When he was aware of this answer, he was greatly alarmed. His knees began to tremble, and he was forced to sit down. Then there was another knock, but the knock was at the door of his room. It was his neighbor, a poor man who had a number of children whom he could no longer satisfy with food. "I know," thought the poor man, "that my neighbor is rich, but he is as hard as he is rich. I don't believe he will help me, but my children are crying for bread, so I will venture it." He said to the rich man, "You do not readily give away anything that is yours, but I stand here like one who feels the water rising above his head. My children are starving. Lend me 4 measures of corn." The rich man looked at him long, and then the first sunbeam of mercy began to melt away a drop of the ice of greediness. "I will not lend you 4 measures," he answered. "I will make you a present of 8, but you must fulfill one condition." "What am I to do?" said the poor man. "When I am dead, you shall watch for 3 nights by my grave." The peasant was disturbed in his mind at this request, but in the need in which he was, he would have consented to anything. He accepted, therefore, and carried the corn home with him. It seemed as if the rich man had foreseen what was about to happen, for when 3 days were gone by, he suddenly dropped down dead. No one knew exactly how it came to pass, but no one grieved for him. When he was buried, the poor man remembered his promise. He would willingly have been released from it, but he thought, "After all, he acted kindly by me. I have fed my hungry children with his corn, and even if that were not the case, where I have once given my promise, I must keep it." At nightfall he went into the churchyard, and seated himself on the grave mound. Everything was quiet. Only the moon appeared above the grave, and frequently an owl flew past and uttered her melancholy cry. When the sun rose, the poor man betook himself in safety to his home, and in the same manner the second night passed quietly by. On the evening of the third night, he felt a strange uneasiness. It seemed to him that something was about to happen. When he went out, he when he went yeah, when he went out, he saw by the churchyard wall a man whom he had never seen before. He was no longer young, had scars on his face, and his eyes looked sharply and eagerly about round. He was entirely covered with an old cloak, and nothing was visible but his great riding boots. "What are you looking for here?" the peasant asked. "Are you not afraid of the lonely churchyard?" "I am looking for nothing," he answered, "and I am afraid of nothing. I am like the youngster who went forth to learn how to shudder, and had his labor for his pains, but got the king's daughter to wife and great wealth with her. Only I have remained poor, and am nothing but a paid-off soldier, and I mean to pass the night here, because I have no other shelter." You know, I'm going to stop here for a second because this is an interesting little reference. He mentions he is like the youngster who went forth to learn how to shudder, and had his labor for his pains, but got the king's daughter to wife. King Tron's sequel? Exactly, that's interesting because this is a reference to another Grimm's fairy tales that's earlier in the collection. So it's the Grimm brothers referencing an earlier story, either sequel or just referencing that the soldier knows the tale, which is really weird. It's sort of a fairy tale inception. I don't know. It's just weird and clever. If you are without fear, said the peasant, stay with me and help me to watch that grave there. To keep watch is a soldier's business, he replied. Whatever we fall in with here, or whether it be good or bad, we will share it between us. The peasant agreed to this, and they seated themselves on the grave together. All was quiet until midnight, when suddenly a shrill whistling was heard in the air, and the two watchers perceived the evil one standing bodily before them. "Be off, you scoundrels!" cried he to them. "The man who lies in that grave belongs to me. I want to take him, and if you don't go away, I will wring your necks." "Sir with the red feather," said the soldier, "you are not my captain. I have no need to obey you, and I have not yet learned what fear is. Go away. We shall stay sitting here." The devil thought to himself, "Money is the best means with which to lay hold of these two vagabonds." So he began to play a softer tune, and asked quite kindly if they would not accept a bag of money, and go home with it. "That is worth listening to," answered the soldier, "but one bag of gold won't serve us. If you will give us as much as will go into one of my boots, we will quit the field for you and go away."
"I have not so much as that about me," said the devil, "but I will fetch it. In the neighboring town lives a money changer who is a good friend of mine, and will readily advance it to me."
When the devil had vanished, the soldier took his left boot off, and said, "We will soon pull the charcoal burner's nose for him. Just give me your knife, comrade." Kintron, I think Sir with the Red Feather was the title of another. At least sounds familiar. I'm going to have to check in the book. It does sound familiar. Just give me your knife, comrade. He cut the sole off the boot and put it in the high grass near the grave on the edge of a hole that was half overgrown. "That will do," said he. "Now the chimney sweep may come." They both sat down and waited, and it was not long before the devil returned with a small bag of gold in his hand. "Just pour it in," said the soldier, raising up the boot a little, "but that won't be enough." The black one shook out all that was in the bag. The gold fell through, and the boot remained empty. "Stupid devil!" cried the soldier. "It won't do! Didn't I say so at once? Go back again and bring more." The devil shook his head, went, and in an hour's time came with a much larger bag under his arm. "Now pour it in," cried the soldier, "but I doubt the boot will be full." The gold clinked as it fell, but the boot remained empty. The devil looked in himself with his burning eyes and convinced himself of the truth. "You have shamefully big calves to your legs," cried he, and made a wry face. "Did you think," replied the soldier, "that I had a cloven foot like you? Since when have you been so stingy? See that you get more gold together, or our bargain will come to nothing." The wicked one went off again. This time he stayed away longer, and when at length he appeared, he was panting under the weight of a sack which lay on his shoulders. He emptied it into the boot, which was just as far from being filled as before. He became furious, and was just about to tear the boot out of the soldier's hands, but At that moment, the first ray of the rising sun broke forth from the sky, and the evil spirit fled away with loud shrieks. The poor soul was saved. The peasant wished to divide the gold, but the soldier said, "Give what falls to my lot to the poor. I will come with you to your cottage, and together we will live in rest and peace on what remains, as long as God is pleased to permit." Oh, that was a fantastic little story. I thought that one was a good one. Um, Not sure what else to say about this one. It is interesting that they don't use the name of the devil all that often in the story, and there was something to that. Back in those days, it was believed that saying his name directly, he only says no. The soldier only says it to insult the devil. Dr. Zayim, sadly, God became displeased the next day and smote them. Oh dear, oh dear. I wouldn't doubt it. Um, Note, he only says the name the devil to insult the devil. Otherwise, he's never called that directly. And there was something to that, as it was believed at a time that saying the name of the devil would summon him, no matter what. Kintron, the trick was that if you say the devil's name, he'll come. Same reason they used to not say bear. True. Very true. It's interesting. It's an interesting little bit there. Let's see. We got some time, so let me see if I can pull out another story. I kind of want to do a long one. So let me see if there's a shorter one that I can do. Okay, let's see. Some of these. Take a look. Look. Most of these are fairly long ones. Okay. Kintron, call out devil and the devil comes. Call out bear and a bear comes. Call out wolf and the village comes until they no longer believe you. Interesting. Okay, let's see. Hmm. What is a riddling tale? 6-3. Oh, here's some very short stories. Okay, let me see. I've got some time for some cool skeleton. Shout out cool skeleton. Well, thank you. Okay, do I want to do a longer one? Um, you know what? Let's end the night with a slightly longer one. And to be fair for it, I'll choose one that is fairly well known. So, let's do. Where is that one? Um, let's see. Da, 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 da. Well, maybe that'd be a little too long. I need to save my voice after all. Maybe I shouldn't. Well, I know which one to do. I know which one to do. It's a shorter one. So I'm going to give you a choice. Do you want a lighter story or a darker story, my dear scholars? Oh, Yulia Toy says darker. Oh my goodness. Darker. Okay, this one's a little more famous. Some of you might have heard of it. Make it dark. This one ends on a real dark note. Okay, so we will be reading The Death of the Little Hen. Once upon a time, the little hen went with the little cock to the nut hill, and they agreed together that whichsoever of them found a kernel of a nut should share it with the other. Then the hen found a large, large nut, but said nothing about it, intending to eat the kernel herself. The kernel, however, was so large that she could not swallow it, and it remained sticking in her throat, so that she was alarmed lest she should be choked. Then she cried, "Cock, I entreat you to run as fast as you can and fetch me some water, or I shall choke." The little cock did run as fast as he could to the spring, and said, "Stream, you have to give me some water. The little hen is lying on the nut hill, and she has swallowed a large nut and is choking." The well answered, "First run to the bride and get her to give you some red silk." The little cock ran to the bride and said, "Bride, you are to give me some red silk. I want to give red silk to the well. The well is to give me some water. I am to take the water to the little hen who is lying on the nut hill and has swallowed a great nut kernel and is choking with it." The bride answered, "First run and bring me my large wreath which is hanging to a willow." Iseo slides into chat for Lork. Welcome, Iseo, welcome. So the little cock ran to the willow and drew the wreath from the branch and took it to the bride, and the bride gave him some red silk for it, which he took to the well, and who gave him some water for it. Then the little cock took the water to the hen, but when he got there the hen had choked in the meantime, and lay there dead, and did not move. Then the cock was so distressed that he cried aloud, and every animal came to lament the little hen, and 6 mice built a little carriage to carry her to her grave, and when the carriage was ready they harnessed themselves to it, and the cock drove. On the way, however, they met the fox, who said, "Where are you going, little cock?" "I am going to bury my little hen." "May I drive with you?" Yes, but seat yourself in the back of the carriage, for in the front my little horses could not drag you. Then the fox seated himself at the back, and after that the wolf, the bear, the stag, the lion, and all the beasts of the forest did the same. Then the procession went onward, and they reached the stream. "How are we to cross over?" said the little cock. A straw was lying by the stream, and it said, "I will lay myself straight across, and then you can drive over me." But when the six mice came to the bridge, the straw slipped and fell into the water, and the six mice all fell in and were drowned. Then they were again in difficulty, and a coal came and said, "I am large enough. I will lay myself across, and you shall drive over me." So the coal also lay itself across the water, but unhappily just touched it, at which the coal hissed, was extinguished, and died. When a stone saw that, he took pity on the little cock, wished to help him, and laid himself over the water. Then the cock drew the carriage himself, but when he got it over, and reached the shore with the dead hen, and was about to draw over the others, who were sitting behind as well, there were too many of them. The carriage ran back, and they all fell into the water together, and were drowned. Then the little cock was left alone with the dead hen, and dug a grave for her, and laid her in it, and made a mound above it, on which he sat down and fretted until he died too, and then everyone was dead. Everyone dies in that story. Isn't it lovely? Isn't it a lovely fairy tale? Let's see what other. Dr. Sayo, I came back and find Matsu talking about it. Yes, apparently I am. Okay, let's see. Oh, I know this one. This one's a good one. This one might be the last one, I think. We'll see. We'll see how far we go into these ones. This one is more of an animal story. Another animal story, I should say. This one's a little more famous. You might have heard this story before. The Wolf and the Fox. The wolf had the fox with him, and whatsoever the wolf wished, that the fox was compelled to do, for he was the weaker, and he would gladly have been rid of his master. It chanced that once as they were going through the forest, the wolf said, "Red Fox, get me something to eat, or else I will eat you yourself." Then the fox answered, "I know a farmyard where there are two young lambs. If you are inclined, we will fetch one of them." That suited the wolf, and they went thither, and the fox stole the little lamb, took it to the wolf, and went away. The wolf devoured it, but was not satisfied with one. He wanted the other as well, and went to get it. But as he did it so clumsily, the mother of the little lamb heard him, and began to cry out terribly and to bleat, so that the farmers came running there. They found the wolf and beat him so mercilessly that he went to the fox limping and howling. "You have mislaid me finely," said he. "I wanted to fetch the other lamb, and the country folk surprised me, and have beaten me to a jelly." The fox replied, "Why are you such a glutton?" Next day they again went into the country, and the greedy wolf once more said, "Red Fox, get me something to eat, or I will eat you yourself." Then answered the fox, "I know a farmhouse where the wife is baking pancakes tonight. We will get some of them for ourselves." They went there, and the fox slipped round the house and peeped and sniffed about until he discovered where the dish was, and then snatched 6 pancakes and carried them to the wolf. "There is something for you to eat," said he to him, and then went his way. The wolf swallowed down the pancakes in an instant, and said, "They make one want more," and went thither, and tore the whole dish down so that it broke in pieces. This made such a great noise that the woman came out, and when she saw the wolf she called the people, who hurried there and beat him as long as their sticks would hold together, till with 2 lame legs and howling loudly he returned to the fox in the forest. "How abominable you have misled me!" cried he. "The peasants caught me and tanned my skin for me." But the fox replied, "Why are you such a glutton?" On the third day, when they were out together, and the wolf could only limp along painfully, he again said, "Red Fox, get me something to eat, or I will eat you yourself." The fox answered, "I know a man who has been killing, and the salted meat is lying in a barrel in the cellar. We will get that." "Oh, hello there, Sophia. Welcome. I'm kind of here lurking. Oh, and thank you for the subscription once more. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are heading towards the end of our little stream, so I'm getting a few shorter fairy tales in. Where was I? "And the salted meat is lying in a barrel in the cellar. We will get that," said the wolf. "I will go when you do, that you may help me if I am not able to get away." "I am willing," said the fox, and showed him the bypaths and ways by which at length they reached the cellar. There was meat in abundance, and the wolf attacked it instantly and thought, "There is plenty of time before I need leave off." The fox liked it also, but looked about everywhere, and often ran to the hole by which they had come in, to find out if his body was still thin enough to slip through it. The wolf said, "Dear fox, tell me why you are running here and there so much, and jumping in and out." "I must see that no one is coming," replied the crafty fellow. "Don't eat too much." Then said the wolf, "I shall not leave until the barrel is empty." In the meantime, the farmer, who had heard the noise of the fox's jumping, came into the cellar. When the fox saw him, he was out of the hole at one bound. The wolf wanted to follow him, but he had made himself so fat with eating that he could no longer get through, but stuck fast. Then came the farmer with a cudgel and struck him dead. But the fox bounded into the forest, glad to be rid of the old glutton. That teaches you a lesson. Don't get too carried away and keep your eyes out for trouble. That one seems to be a much more somewhat famous story there. Let me see, we got time for, I think, one more story. So let me see if I can find one that won't be too much for me. Let me see. Okay. Last story will be for the night another more obscure one. I don't think it's done all that off. Get there, get there, get there. Kind of surprised the. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me get some last bit of water, and we'll read our final story for this evening. Okay. Excuse me. Once again. The Crystal Ball. The story is called The Crystal Ball. There was once an enchantress who had 3 sons who loved each other as brothers, but the old woman did not trust them and thought they wanted to steal her power from her. So she changed the eldest into an eagle, which was forced to dwell in the Rocky Mountains, and was often seen flying in great circles in the sky. The second she changed into a whale, which lived in the deep sea, and all that was seen of it was that it sometimes sprouted up a great jet of water in the air. Each of them bore his human form for only 2 hours daily. The third son, who was afraid she might change him into a raging wild beast, a bear perhaps, or a wolf, went secretly away. He had heard that a king's daughter who was bewitched was imprisoned in the castle of the Golden Sun, and was waiting to be set free. Those, however, who had tried to free her risked their lives. 23 youths had already died a miserable death, and now only one other might make the attempt, after which no more must come. And as his heart was out without fear, he made up his mind to seek out the castle of the Golden Sun. He had already traveled about for a long time without being able to find it, when he came by chance into a great forest, and did not know the way out of it. All at once he saw in the distance 2 giants, who made a sign to him with their hands, and when he came to them they said, "We are quarreling about a cap, and which of us it is to belong to, and as we are equally strong, neither of us can get the better of the other. The small men are cleverer than we are, so we will leave the decision to you." Huh. 2 giants complain about comparing each other's strengths. Wonder where I've heard of that. Can't think of where. "How can you dispute about an old cap?" said the youth. "You do not know what properties it has. It is a wishing cap. Whomsoever puts it on can wish himself away wherever he likes, and in an instant will be there." "Give me the cap," said the youth. "I will go a short distance off, and when I call you, you must run a race, and the cap shall belong to the one who gets first to me." He put it on and went away, and thought of the king's daughter, forgot the giants, and walked continually onward. At length he sighed from the very bottom of his heart, and cried, "Ah, if I were but at the castle of the Golden Sun!" And hardly had the words passed his lips that he was standing on a high mountain before the gate of the castle. Excuse me. He entered and went through all the rooms, until in the last he found the king's daughter. But how shocked he was when he saw her! She had an ashen gray face full of wrinkles, bleary eyes, and red hair. It's interesting they include the red hair thing. Do they have an issue with red hair for some reason? Huh. "Are you the king's daughter whose beauty the whole world praises?" cried he. "Ah," she answered, "this is not my form. Human eyes can only see me in this state of ugliness, but that you may know what I am like, look in the mirror. It does not let itself be misled. It will show you my image as it is in truth." She gave him the mirror in his hand, and he saw therein the likeness of the most beautiful maiden on earth, and saw too how the tears were rolling down her cheeks with grief. Then said he, "How can you be set free? I fear no danger." She said, "He who gets the crystal ball, and holds it before the enchanter, will destroy his power with it, and I shall resume my true shape. Ah," she added, "so many have already gone to meet death for this, and you are so young. I grieve that you should encounter such great danger." "Nothing can keep me from doing it," said he, "but tell me what I must do." "You shall know everything," said the king's daughter, "when you descend the mountain on which the castle stands. A wild bull will stand below by a spring, and you must fight with it. And if you have the luck to kill it, a fiery bird will spring out of it, which bears in its body a red hot egg, and in the egg the crystal ball lies as its yolk. The bird, however, will not let the egg fall until forced to do so, and if it falls on the ground it will flame up and burn everything that is near, and even the egg itself will melt, and with it the crystal ball, and then all your trouble will have been in vain." The youth went down to the spring, where the bull snorted and bellowed at him. After a long struggle he plunged his sword in the animal's body, and it fell down. Instantly a fiery bird arose from it, and was about to fly away. But the young man's brother, the eagle, who was passing between the clouds, swooped down, hunted it away to the sea, and struck it with its beak until in its extremity it let the egg fall. The egg, however, did not fall into the sea, but on a fisherman's hut, which stood on the shore, and the hut began at once to smoke and was about to break out in flames. Then arose in the sea waves as high as a house, which streamed over the hut and subdued the fire. The other brother, the whale, had come swimming to them, and had driven the water up on high. When the fire was extinguished, the youth sought for the egg, and happily found it. It was not yet melted, but the shell was broken by being so suddenly cooled with the water, and he could take out the crystal ball unhurt. When the youth went to the enchanter and held it before him, the latter said, "My power is destroyed, and from this time forth you are the king of the castle of the golden sun. With this can you likewise give back to your brothers their human form." Then the youth hastened to the king's daughter, and when he entered the room she was standing there in the full splendor of her beauty, and joyfully they exchanged rings with each other. Oh, what a lovely story. Although, where did they get the rings? I mean, were they just randomly there in the room? Were they prepared for it? Also, it's kind of funny how the brothers being disenchanted is like a throwaway line at the end. Like, yeah, you've got the magic ball. You can break your brother's charm too. And the enchantress kind of disappears completely from the story as well. Like, I kind of was half expecting. I had heard this story somewhat before an adaptation, and I was kind of half expecting the enchantress to be the one who enchanted the daughter in the first place. But no, it's just another random enchanter, which there seems to be a dime a dozen of them. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I always enjoy reading fairy tales and folk tales, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let's move on to our little chat room so we can close out the night. Ah, here we are. Whew. I don't know why I had some difficult reading some of these. Did you enjoy these selections of stories? Julian20, I loved it. Great job. Oh, good. I'm glad. Dr. Zadium, yes. Private Maverick, great stories. Oh, thank you. I tried to choose some good stories. I know some of them were kind of a little bit random, but I had hopes that they would be really enjoyable for you all. Julian20 and kind of dark. Yeah, they were dark. I mean, these fairy tales are meant to be lesson stories, and often these lesson stories are very harsh ones. Cool Skeleton, they were indeed good. Ah, I'm glad to hear it. So yes, let's see. Um, so the where am I going with this? Oh, next week's schedule. Next week, if everything goes well. Let me put it that way. If everything goes well and there's no issues, Next Tuesday will be more of a little to the left. We will maybe finish the game. I don't know for certain. And then next Thursday again, if everything goes according to plan, I will update you on that. We will be starting our reading of Sky Island, which is the sequel to The Sea Fairies. I thought of delaying Sky Island a little bit to give some room between the two, but I realized I need to kind of get right into it um because I need to keep the voices consistent and need to remember how I did them. And I kind of want to get that story a little bit out of the way so I can work on some more novels that I'm looking forward to reading and some more stories I'm looking forward to reading. Um, Again, I will update all of you if there is any issue, if anything comes up, and any difference. Aseo, good stream. Oh, thank you so much, Aseo. Let's see. So we will close out the evening for now, and I think we shall raid. Lorelei Sylvanus is playing a game called Gunfire Reborn. I think we will raid her for tonight. So my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet again till we meet each other again in the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Bye bye.